All right, today we're going to dive into Mark Age. This was one of the most unique and incredibly detailed spiritual movements of the 20th century. And look, this wasn't just about spotting a few flying saucers. Oh no, this was a full-on, complete blueprint for humanity's future, and it was supposedly delivered by a cosmic government.
So let me just ask you this. What if our entire solar system was actually run by a spiritual government? A cosmic council of ascended masters and extraterrestrial beings, not politicians, overseeing the evolution of every single planet, including ours. It's a pretty wild thought, right? But for one very organized group, this wasn't just a thought. It was their absolute core belief.
Yep, that's right. This group, called Mark Age, didn't just believe in this spiritual government. They claimed they were in direct communication with it. And they said they were tasked with a huge mission to prepare all of humanity for a brand new era, the Age of Aquarius. So who exactly was on the other end of this cosmic phone call? Well, you might be picturing some lifelong mystic, right? But the story actually starts with an accidental prophet, someone whose life took a turn so dramatic you'd think it was fiction. Meet Pauline Sharpe. Now, before the 1950s, she was a self-described atheist and a really successful business executive. Then boom, after a sudden spiritual awakening, she becomes Nada Yolanda, a conscious channel for beings from a higher dimension. I mean, that transformation right there, from total skeptic to spiritual channel, that's the key to this entire story. And this is who she claimed to be talking to, the hierarchical board. Okay, so think of it like a celestial cabinet, or maybe a spiritual UN for the solar system. According to Mark Age, this was the group responsible for guiding Earth through its next big evolutionary leap. And this communication wasn't just random whispers from the cosmos. It was a very structured, top-down plan. You had the hierarchical board at the top creating the vision, then Nada Yolanda would receive it telepathically, and finally, the Mark Age organization would translate it all into a practical roadmap for the rest of us. So, what did this cosmic roadmap actually look like? Well, it wasn't some simple little pamphlet. It was a comprehensive 351-page book that became the absolute foundational text for their entire movement. This book was called MAPP to Aquarius, and MAPP actually stands for Mark Age Period and Program. It was the culmination of more than a decade of these channeled messages, and it laid out everything from the hidden history of the cosmos to the super specific steps that humanity needed to take to evolve. Okay, let's break down some of the core ideas here. So beyond the whole cosmic governance by the hierarchical board, the book introduces this concept of the I Am Nation, a spiritual government for Earth. It also talked about humans evolving into something called a light body, which is basically an immortal, higher vibrational form. And it called for unifying all spiritual traditions to unlock all this hidden wisdom. But who was going to lead this massive shift? The book actually specified a number, 144,000 elect individuals. And these weren't just followers. No, they were seen as spiritual pioneers, the ones who were destined to wake up first and then guide the rest of humanity through this big transition. But this wasn't just some abstract theory, something to talk about. Mark Age had a very real, very structured plan to actually implement these ideas right here on Earth, and it all started with their I Am Nation. And here's the crucial point. In their own words, they said it was not a political government, but a spiritual congregation. So the goal wasn't a takeover. It was about creating a collective of awakened people who could govern themselves from a place of higher consciousness, way beyond borders and politics. To actually build this spiritual nation, they designed a whole framework with 5 divisions. 2 of the key ones were a university of life, which would teach all this new cosmic knowledge, and a healing haven to help people deal with spiritual trauma and karma from past lives. I mean, they were literally building a complete social infrastructure from the ground up. So where does a movement like this even fit into the bigger picture? Well, Mark Age wasn't created in a vacuum, right? It was absolutely a product of its time, blending together several really powerful cultural and spiritual currents that were floating around. This chart really shows you the DNA of their worldview. You can totally see the influence of Theosophy, with its ideas of ascended masters and karma. It's obviously a huge part of the whole UFO contactee phenomenon from the mid-20th century. And it weaves in New Age principles and even these esoteric interpretations of Christian figures, like recasting Jesus as a cosmic being named Sananda. And it's so important to remember this wasn't just some tiny fringe group hiding in a basement somewhere. At its peak, MAPP Age was a major player. It was one of the largest and most influential UFO contactee organizations of its time, thanks in large part to all of their publications and their highly organized structure.
And this timeline here kind of shows their journey. They started in Miami in the 60s, published their key text mapped to Aquarius in 1970. The organization just kept operating and evolving for decades, even after its co-founders passed away. And eventually, it relocated to Tennessee, where it's still continuing its work today.
Ultimately, the story of MAPP Age leaves us with a really fascinating question. It was born during the Cold War, the social upheaval of the 60s, and it offered this structured, hopeful, cosmic alternative to all the chaos happening on Earth. It really makes you wonder, when our world feels uncertain, is it just human nature to look up to the stars for a grander plan?